So, we're going to start with a basic animation. So first of all, I'm using the application Flipaclip. You can get it for free on the App Store, whether you're using an Apple device, Android. It works pretty much across any platform as far as I know. But once you're in to the application, you're going to be at this screen first. And this screen is your home screen, or your toolbox. You have all your projects down here. You have your most recents at the top. And then you have the plus button, the home button, and the discover button. The home button is where we are already. The plus button is how you create a new animation. And the discover tab leads you to tutorials, getting started, challenges, and other things that the app has to offer. But we stay here in projects. Movies will be empty for you if you're just starting out with the application, since you haven't exported anything yet. But we'll get to all that in a moment. So before we start on a basic animation, let's go over the tools and the layout of your workspace, because you have to be comfortable in a workspace before you can just dive in. I made that mistake of not going slow enough, so the learning process is a little more difficult for me, but I don't want it to be difficult for you, so we're going to try it this way. Now, this is with the newest version of Flipaclip. I don't know if everyone's devices are already updated, but we're going to try this. So this tool here is our pen. We have our pen, eraser, lasso, fill bucket, and text tool. We're going to go into the pen first. So pen, we have our pen property, we have our size, which you drag down to make smaller and up to make larger, and then you have the color, which you click on. Then you have your color wheel, your color box, and then you have your saved palettes, or in the sense they call them presets. You hit the little plus and you have a preset. I have far too many presets. But then you can save colors. Let's say that I really like this purple color, for example. Hit the little plus down here, and then that color is saved there, and there you go. Color saved. All good. All you need to do. Now, if you want your opacity of your brush to be down lower than the full opacity, you want to click and hold on the box and then drag down, and you'll see the checkerboard appear. We are at 37%, and now you have a lower opacity. The only problem with this is if you go over with low opacity, it'll overlap, because it's kind of like you're making it see-through. And you drag back up to make it full opacity. So let's say you don't want the pen and you want another brush. So thankfully Flipaclip's update allows a lot more tools. So if you click on the pen icon, it'll give you all of these. You have pen, pencil, brush, highlighter, crayon, airbrush, and sketch. For me personally, I only switch between pen or pencil, and ever so often I'll go to the airbrush if I'm making blush or glowing effects. The rest of them I don't use, but I'm going to go through them all in case you want to use them. So the pen we just saw. Pencil, so this one's important. I'm going to use my finger and put my pen down. So it's very light. It's just like a very soft pencil. Very soft, like maybe 2B pencil if you've ever played with one of those in real life. They're very, very soft, very fine. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to use them. But that's around where we are with full opacity. If you go down with opacity for this, it gets really, really soft. But I usually keep it around 57 maybe when doing sketchy animations, because as you draw with it, the more you draw in one spot, the darker it'll get. So believe it or not, this is the same opacity as this. It's just scribbled over in various spots. So that works well. Alright, now onto the next tool. Now we have the brush tool. So brush, paintbrush, same thing. This one has some extra settings that you can do. So all of them actually have extra settings that I actually forgot to go through the second panel. I'm so sorry about that. So this is an extra color cube if you want to get through the colors that way, but you can get it through the shortcut like I showed you before. You can stabilize it, you can show the thickness, or the opacity. These are just extra settings that you can already do on this little side panel here, so you don't have to touch those. If you want to, you can. That's up to you. but the brush is like a very, very saturated paintbrush. If you don't keep it down to 1% opacity, like if you go to 2%, there you go. If you go all the way to 100% though, you're getting like a solid line. And you probably don't want that for this more watercolor. So yeah, even 25%. Yeah, 2% gives you that. So this is a pretty finicky brush to use. I don't use it personally, but I'm sure that you could be able to find a use for it. And next we have our highlighter, which is very self-explanatory. It's a highlighter. You can use any color on it. It doesn't matter. It's just a highlighter. You can use it at any opacity. Yeah. There's not much that I use that for. I've never really touched that tool, but I'm sure I'll figure it out at some point. Now this is the crayon. Okay. I always get the pencil, crayon, and sketch mixed up, but now I figured out that pencil is the one I like. Crayon is exactly like a real crayon. It's speckled. It has a pretty hard opacity, but you get this nice texture. So if you wanted to make maybe like scratches or wounds, let me see if I can make something real fast here. It looks a little bit like flesh or scale pattern. So if you want a pattern, then I recommend this. Airbrush is perfect if you worked with Procreate or Ibis Paint. This is a great brush to use. It's soft, just like a real airbrush is, and it works great if you're doing like blush or glowing effects. There's an example that I have in another one of my projects where I use the airbrush to make this character's eyes glow. I did do this on a separate layer, but you can see the effect that it causes. There's no extra effect, it's just the airbrush in its purity. If you want something different, then you go down, you see the play button, you can fast forward to the end of your animation or to the beginning, but then you hit your layers tool. So if you pay $10 one time, you can get up to 10 layers and you get no more advertisements. If you're just starting out and haven't bought premium, you'll only be able to get 3 layers and you might be experiencing some advertisements because you didn't buy the premium version. It's not a monthly subscription. I have it and it works wonderfully. But either way, this is either premium or not, this is our layers panel. So the layers panel is very simple. It's really easy to get the hang of. It's really sorry, I can't speak. It resembles the basic, the basic works of any other artistic app, like Ibis Paint or Procreate again. You have your layers tab. If you click on the 3 lines, you can drag it. I don't have another layer here. I'll make another layer, and you can reorder layers. If you drag a layer on top of another layer, you'll merge the layers down. It used to ask, do you want to merge layers, but it doesn't ask that anymore. So be careful, because once you merge 2 layers together, you cannot unmerge them. They are merged forever, and you will not be able to just unmerge them like you can in drawing apps. So that's the unfortunate thing about Flipaclip. You have this 100% here, and you can drag that up and down and adjust the opacity of the entire layer. So let's say I have something, I don't know, something like this. I don't know, going around like that. Whee! Yeah, see? Yeah, something like that. But then, I dragged this down. That causes every frame on that layer to become whatever opacity I just made it. So okay, now for layer 1, you can rename layers just by clicking on layer 1. We're not going to rename layers because I'm not going to be using this project for anything else. So now over here, you might have seen me click this a few times, we have everything in the right top corner. For example, if you click on the 3 dots, you have project settings, frames viewer, onion skins, grid, add image, and add video. If you're doing this on a phone, you might have to scroll down to see add image and add video, but they're there in the same place. So if you click on project settings, the icon with the little pencil, you'll get the same window you got when you first made the project. You'll get the project name, where you can edit the background, and then for format, you won't be able to change that, but then you can change the frames per second. Let me explain that if you don't understand. Frames per second is how fast an animation goes. If I have 20 frames per second, I need 20 frames to make 1 second of animation. which means it'll move a lot faster. If I have 12, which is the preset for Flipaclip, which is a lot, what I use a lot, it's a lot better if you're starting out. Start out slow. I would even go down to 8 if you really want to just give yourself some slack if this is your first time. I'll need 12 frames a second to make 1 second of animation, which means it'll move a lot slower. When I first started out, I thought you made 1 frame per second, like 1 frame, 1 second. Oh, it's just each frame is a second. No. It does not work like that. You will get a very, very slow, more slideshow, PowerPoint looking thing, and we don't want that. Unless you do. Your thing. So, we got our bookmark. This is bookmark. This is scenes and backgrounds that Flipaclip already gives you. Okay? And then you have the same bucket tool that you usually have. Bucket tool, you have all your presets. You can make the background any color. I usually go for a soft gray so then the white doesn't hurt my eyes as much. If you have a background that you already made in another app and it's saved to your photos, you can either go to Files or Photo Library and put in a photo or a file. I don't have a file that I'm putting in, so we don't have to talk about that right now. And here we also have a camera icon. I believe, yep, that's exactly what I thought it was. It allows you to take pictures and put those pictures as a layer in your animation. So I didn't make it much changes here, so all the change was the background color. Okay, so now if I move the canvas out, you see that these little arrows next to our 3 dots lit up. That's because this is, I call it the reframe button. I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, you can reframe it. So you can bring, like if you have your animation zoomed out, oh no, it's turned. Click this button and it resets you back to where it was before. So now you have an undo and redo buttons. Those are already self-explanatory. The one on the left is for you to undo things, and the one on the right is for you to redo things. So now these 2 boxes, these are very important. Okay, I know exactly which is which. I forget which is which sometimes. So the box with the dotted lines is your copy button. So let's say, let me just paste this from another animation. So this is a character that I have here. So with our lasso tool, if you double click on the lasso tool, you can select whatever's on that frame. It'll select it as an entirety. If you want individual select, just be on the lasso tool and then drag your finger wherever you want it to go. But we only have Trex here on this main screen, so we only need him. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go here. I usually double click. You don't have to double click, but I do it since I'm paranoid. I double click the copy, and then I can delete this, move it to another frame, and then I hit the one without the dotted line, and I get paste. And there you go. You just copied and pasted a frame of animation. This really helps when you're doing slower animations to slower audios or music, or just want slower and you need to duplicate frames. It's really helpful. So you see the little ruler is not lit up until I go back to my pen here. So this ruler, it's very flimsy. I kind of hope that they make it a little bit easier to work with, but it works just like the stencils in Ibis Paint. If you have a straight line, you can only draw in a straight line going that direction. Something like this. If you have a circle, wherever your screen is, you can draw a circle. Depends on where you want to draw. And if you have a square, same thing. Faster you draw the square, more rounded the corners will be. And the most important part of this tool that I want to mention is if you have a circle on your screen, it stays still even though the canvas moves, which is unlike Ibis Paint. So just keep that in mind. If you move, your circle doesn't move. It stays wherever you put it on the canvas. Okie dokie. Eraser tool. So this one, if you want a soft erase, let me doodle something real fast so I can give you an example. No. Okay, there we go. So the softer we have the eraser by dragging this extra button up, it acts more like an airbrush, but an eraser. And if we crank this all the way down to 0, you get a hard erase, which is most common with a lot of animations. But with doodle animations, I like to keep the erasing softer. Now this is our size tool, works just any of the other tools as well as this one, except you can't change the color with this one. This is just the opacity because you can't color your eraser. This is our lasso tool. It has no extra settings. You just You can lasso select, or you can double tap to select, but there's nothing on my screen, so it won't work unless there's something there. This is our bucket tool. So, something important. If you have lavender on pen, you won't have lavender on bucket. You have to do it manually because they have two separate colors, so you can have a different preset color for your pen than for your bucket tool. So bucket tool, I don't know what the 60% does. I don't touch that because I don't really need it, but you just click and tap wherever you are. If you have a closed shape has to be fully closed, the lines have to be full opacity, then you can color inside those things. Or you can color by hand. So now we got our text tool. So Flipaclip offers you a whole bunch of fonts. I don't think you can download your own fonts. I don't think you can get your own fonts yet. I would have downloaded a few if I could. So we're gonna go. It always starts you with Alex Brush Regular. You might want that, but I usually go down to Boombox because it's easier to read, and I usually keep it at white, so we can make a little smiley face here. There you go, a little smiley face. He's happy to see you. Okie dokie. And that's all for the text tool. It's really simple. You can select it. You can chop it up like you can with any other thing. It behaves just like as if you were to draw it on. I'm going to put a happy boy in this corner. So that's the basics of the workspace.